I started to go as a journalist over the last couple of years, and then really when the war broke out, so after the Maidan Revolution, I was there really quite a lot covering the war. I would come to bookshops, I would look online, and then I realized that how little there actually was about Ukraine, which is quite surprising really for such a big and important country, 45 million people, and there are really only a handful of books in English. People keep asking about this question of kind of key messages and what's your point of view, but the point of the book is not to be a polemical book. Of course I've got a point of view, and it's probably clear from the book what the point of view is. The real point of the book is to kind of describe to people what Ukraine looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, and what life is like for ordinary Ukrainians. There are all sorts of misconceptions about Ukraine, and you know, much of that is to do with what's called the info war, the war of a kind of Russian propaganda, essentially. One of the most amazing things, really, was that more than anywhere else that I've been to, I think, in my journalistic career, was that when I started to ask people, ordinary people, you know, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? They just, once they began to open up, they just almost didn't want to stop. They just went on and on. And I realized the reason for this was because people just generally don't ask Ukrainians what they think. People don't really, the powers that be don't care. So they're just delighted when somebody, especially from outside, comes and asks them about their life and, you know, what it's like. And in many people, it was like a kind of dam breaking, and they were just so happy to talk and have somebody to listen. And I think that that's a little bit part of the tragedy of Ukraine over the last quarter of a century. People, politicians, the powers that be in Ukraine were not listening to ordinary people. And so, you know, Ukraine fell prey to kind of oligarchs and self-interested politicians, and ordinary people were just sort of basically left to fend for themselves. One of my favorite stories is the story of Askania Nova, which is this village in the south of Ukraine, where you can see the zebras of the steppe. And of course you think, well, how could there be zebras roaming around in Ukraine? And it really is a most extraordinary story of how in the late 19th century a local kind of sheep magnate decided that he was going to start what was really one of the first open-air zoological parks in the world, and he sort of brought zebras and antelopes and other animals from around the world, and they have survived absolutely everything from Russian Revolution, Civil War, First World War, Stalinism, the Second World War, communism, post-communism. The $64,000 question is what happens next. And if truth be told, it's really all in the hands, more or less, of one man, which is Vladimir Putin. Nobody knows what Vladimir Putin is going to do next, or why he's going to do it. After all, no one predicted that he was going to start a war in Ukraine, least of all the Ukrainians. And if the Ukrainians didn't know that, how was anyone else supposed to know? So, you know, I'm hesitant to make any firm predictions. We can say that either there will be a return to war sooner rather than later, or, which is more possible, but I don't know, is that the situation as it is will generally freeze over. And that has been the pattern in the former Soviet Union. So you've got already 4 frozen conflicts: Transnistria, Moldova, Abkhazia and South Ossetia in Georgia, and Nagorno-Karabakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But it's quite possible that we'll have a kind of a new giant frozen conflict, which will just stay frozen for generations to come, which will just be a sort of poor twilight zone from which people leave.